document as much as we can, right? So we are going to have a semi-structured conversation with everyone. So it's not a formal kind of rigid, conversation. We want to make sure that people who are part of this meeting can share what they are thinking about, these things. So Commission 5 is going to look into the issue of leadership, which was a central and dominant theme in the conversation that we had earlier on. Leadership, governance, and political stability, which is a central issue that we've discussed here. So that's the idea, and we have Uzolisa, who's part of the collective, who's going to be able to document some of these ideas that we have. So I'm hoping that I have responded to some questions that we have or thinking that we have. So I'm going to invite Mr. Diambone Ambangu. Yeah. So Lisa, if there is anything that you want to add, you are coming. Okay. Ndiyacela ke bandiza phambili apha esikhawushini. So that we just participate in the discussion and the ideas that you have, and then you talk. Yes. So later on, later on, we are going to get them later on. So that group can you occupy this space, so that we are trying to manage his cameras. It passing at once is 2 years. So listen, can you come and explain that here, please? No. Okay, sure. All right. Okay. Now we are going to start the commission officially. So over to you. Yes.
Justin, okay. Good day, ladies and gents. My name is Zamkolo, and I'll be chairing the first commission on social cohesion, heritage, and legacy. First and foremost, I think it's quite important that we are gathered here in New Brighton, as it is one of the most historic townships in Nelson Mandela Bay, and also it has produced a lot of well-known characters in the sector of arts and culture, the likes of Mama the late Professor John Gani, and many of others. Now, I'm going to start. I've written a very brief introduction here as to pave the way for the discussion of this first commission. As a country, South Africa, we come a long way from the dark days of apartheid, segregation, and so forth. Now, we come from an era of isolation, division, and segregation. Now, when the country, or the so-called class of project of 1994, it was meant to unite the people of South Africa. And that we've seen drastic change that has happened. But the issue of social cohesion, it hasn't been necessarily addressed. There was two quotes that I have here. One by Du Bois. He said, one of the major problems in this age and time is the issue of race. Also, it was 1971 when Spencer argued that the development of different races is a result of social evolution. Now, over the past years, the concept of social cohesion has become an important policy discourse in the Republic of South Africa. So thus, the discourse focuses more on building a democratic, apartheid-era nation-state, as well as increasing anxieties during the current fragmentation along the lines of race, ethnicity, class, and gender. Now, we should also note that social cohesion is critical to the objectives of a developmental state. Now, when we talk about social cohesion, I want us to focus on the characteristics of it. One is enjoyment of both political and civil rights. So this means that citizens should enjoy freedom without infringement, discrimination, or oppression. The second characteristics of social cohesion is non-racist society, respect for the dignity of the other, and an absence of hate crime will prevail. The third one is sharp reduction in inequality. So with this that comes to the awareness and the utilization of the global best practices, which needs to be tailored for the relevance in the nation or state to effectively bring people together to live at a decent cost for all and to live and work in places which are healthy and raises than declined sense of worthy. The fourth character is on common perception of the nation. Now, this requires more effective government of all branches and levels at the same with civil society working together to bring into the societal fold all citizens of democratic background. The fifth one, which is important, is trust in institutions. This means that institutions must be fair, honest, and have impeccable ethic integrity. The sixth one is the integrated human settlements. Increase progress in the elimination of the apartheid legacy. Gender equality. All forms of gender and LGBT discrimination are eliminated. The eighth one, which is the last one, is the equal enjoyment of socio-economic rights, which means that discrimination in enjoyment of socio-economic rights is prohibited, and the state does all in its power to ensure equal enjoyment of these rights. Socio-economic rights in South Africa must be considered in the next context of historical formation and transformation. Those are the 8 characteristics of social cohesion. Now, for the sake of, or the purpose of today's Commission on Social Cohesion, the heritage and legacy of Nelson Mandela Bay, I think I should put it to the floor in terms of how do we ensure, institutions or heritage sites such as the Road Location Museum, that how are they going to benefit the people of Nelson Mandela Bay, as we see that the museum now has become a white elephant. So how do we restore the museum for the benefit of the people of the city as part of the city's legacy, and to ensure that the next generation is also aware of the in-depth history of the city? So I think that should be the first question in terms of how do we ensure that sites in that museum are preserved for the next generation to come as part of the legacy of the city. Thank you.
Doctor is absent, but that question is posed on the floor. So if anybody has a question around that in terms of preserving the heritage site in the metro, but also ensuring that, in fact, looking at this one that we have here, the art center has not been operating for more than 6 months. How do we ensure that there are programs and value that is driven from these facilities? Because a lot of these facilities are built in our communities and they just stay there, and if there's a political issue in the area, they become victims and they're closed. Do you have any questions, any comments around that issue? Sure. Ms. Tolele Mandaba Recorder, I think it might give us a clash. So if we can try, maybe bring some of the mics closer. but now let's project.
Okay, thanks, Chair of the session. One, I think we should look at this. Okay.
Mandela back on internet.
All right. Okay, sorry. One, we should look at the social issues. Per Kawat 15, a replication museum. I think I remember late 1990 or 1999 or early 2000. If you see Pakokunamazik, now it is I don't think there was a proper consultation in the community. For the issue at hand, why now operating direct negotiation because of social issues. There is poverty there is unemployment, there is crime, there is drugs. And abantu abahlala pha ngabazukulwane. Abantu that understands the area passed on. So if you check the leader of that program in terms of society, is a young person. I think was born in late 70s or early 90s. It doesn't have a deep history of that place. Now, uhlekazi besuke eNPTA uthetha ngesingaphi. That percent close to a relocation. But if you can go there, a business in Halaga bush. Next to it is a called Zindrupa Zamatat. I understand that in pre-1994 housing, I can deny the policy that deals with ratification. Maybe we should start there. Do you understand? Because if you want to develop, you must be able to engage with the community first. Don't just come and build and say this is yours. You must be able to engage. It is politically, it is also social, what there is there.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, no.
Okay.
My name is Tandega Shabalala. I'm from the African National Congress Youth League. I think for me, the first thing is that we need to bring back the spirit of communities owning these resource centers, these buildings, and seeing them as their own. This is not a building, a masbal. This is a center that was opened to assist the community. And this goes back to the fact that there is a lot of divestment in humanities. So because humanities and the arts are not seen as profitable organizations, then it means that they are not important. But that's how people lose a sense of who they are. Because they are not interacting with the history of the certain locations or communities they come from. They don't understand the importance of this in their lives, particularly, and when you ask them, it's like, okay, I'm unemployed, I'm hungry, I have a child. What is this center going to do to change my living conditions now? But these are the things that we should look at to say, okay, these centers, how many young people around this community can utilize this center as an art space? How many young people can actually utilize this space? What is the tourism body of the province doing in order to make sure that tourists move towards this location? When I came to PE in 2013, as part of our first year tour, we went to Red Location. I think 2 years later, when I was in the SRC, we were told that we can no longer go to the Red Location Museum because it has been closed down. Now, and it had a lot of issues around how the community was interacting with it. So I think on a local government basis, on a provincial and national department basis, and NGOs and NPOs are very important in bringing this conversation back into the space. No, as members of the community, we don't resonate with these centers, and the reason is 1, 2, and 3. How do you then open that dialogue? How do you ensure that community leaders are bringing in community members to ensure this is why this place is important? It can't be only utilized by government organizations and other NPOs from outside of the community.
Thank you, Program Director. I hope I'm going to make my 2 minutes. My name is Gqeberha from the Defenders of the People. I first want to start with the last sentiment they say about the housing. It is a disgrace in this Nelson Mandela that no government has the guts to build houses for our people. That is why you will see so many informal settlements mushrooming all over the city. Let me tell you why. It is because of the political parties in government doesn't have the guts to take on the provincial government and take back our competency to build houses. Now, for us to sit around here and making sure that people are mushrooming all over the city into informal settlements and be threatened by the government today, that is a crime on its own. I think it's important that when we go into government, my youngest mayor, we are going to change those policies. That policy of saying that human settlement is being taken away out of this Nelson Mandela, that must come back to this Nelson Mandela. Because accreditation is 2 on 2 now. Why can't we build houses? And that is why our officials is doing nothing and the mushrooming of all informal settlement is starting. I want to add also on what the leader is saying in terms of the rectification. A rectification was not being done because of rectification was there for houses. Rectification was there because there was no process plan to engage the community for those houses that we are going to build. Because why? There was criminal activities that's happening. That is why rectification came in and people's houses must be rebuilt because the houses was not built according to the blueprint of national. But that we need to look into. We need to look into our officials, we need to look into our government because our people on the ground is suffering. Our people on the ground is building informal settlement for only because of the government hasn't had the guts to build houses. Now we are building our own informal settlement and forcing the government to service it. Let's go to the heritage. When I look at the red location and all the other heritage buildings right across the metro, it is true that the government of today will only look into the heritage place in the white areas. Let us be honest here, man. We mustn't call a spade here. Because if you look at their heritage, they even protected Jan van Riebeck and all those people that are sitting on horses there in Central. Hence, places like this is closed. Places in our locations are closed. Why? Because again, our political party that is ruling the government is only looking in their interest. And that is quite very sad. But coming 2021, the 1st of November, I hope the residents in this metro will make a decision by saying they will not allow political party to come and make promise to them, but political party that's going to change their lives. Thank you.
All right. I want to request that people just stick to just 1 minute.
Sorry.
Yeah. 1 minute or 2 minutes, right?
Okay.
So that we make sure that everything is captured well. So maybe I want to just give 2 more people a particular type of response. If you have a young mayor, you want to talk. I need another mic, colleague, please. I need a mic to. I need a mic to. Someone must do security there.
I think we must not request 1 minute all the time. The chairperson, I did not know that there were so many elements to social cohesion. To me, it's always been a simple fact that we cannot coexist in a system that was built to separate us. So in as much now, after having heard your submission or your opening remarks, I do take note and I'm alive to the other elements. But I want us to stick to the fundamental of the non-racialism. Now, common understanding is that non-racialism refers to doing away of racial slurs, doing away of segregation and all those things. It's true, those things are away now. But what are we left with? We are left with a system that was built to benefit a few at the expense of the majority. So when fundraising refers to me in a racial slur, that thing in its own does not take away the food from my table. That thing on its own does not make me physically uncomfortable. But it's the systems that it reminds me of that make me upset. So, if at all we were in a society that does not remind me of the yesteryear, then surely social cohesion will be much easier to achieve. But coming down to the heritage sites, particularly the Red Location Museum, I believe strongly that it should not have been built in the first place. Let me tell you why. It is a constant reminder of the disparity that still exists in our society. People are living in houses meant for 2 people, and yet there are 7 to 10 people in that house. And they walk out of that house and they see a monument to how much the government can do, but they decided to do it in their own way without consulting. So in as much as I agree that we need to preserve and honor our heritage, I am saying, let's first invest in people. Butsia, in my life as an entrepreneur, I would always say, investors don't invest in businesses, they invest in people. Then the government must stop investing in big buildings that serve nothing as a reminder of our disparity, but they must invest in the people. Thank you.
I just want to request, we don't have much time, young mayor. We want just 1 minute. Then, yeah. All right. So, now I want to maybe facilitate a response if there is no more other questions. Because the idea is to kind of make sure that we capture as much as we can under this one theme, right? So if you have no contribution, I wanted maybe to give you an opportunity to respond.
If I can come in there, Lord.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to make sure that the discussion is a bit because I want to encourage people here to talk to each other. So I want to remind everyone that this particular session is around how do we create a common vision. So the idea was to essentially talk to each other about some of the ideas that we have about what is happening in our communities. Right? So what I want to hone in on is this problem of, you see, we're trying to talk about heritage, and we're finding that the conversation is being overlapped by service delivery issues. Right? And I think it's Tandega who brought in the idea of community participation. Right? And I want us to kind of come back to that. What are the ways that we can build proper community participation so that communities own these facilities? Right? They own the problems that exist there, because we can't constantly be saying it is government's responsibility to ensure that our communities are clean, for example. Because I don't know how many of you actually walked out of here to look at this area is clean to this facility, but immediately after the wall ends there is enormous dirt. How do we make sure that communities are motivated to act so that it doesn't have to go to a mayor to say, Mayor, come and clean at ward so and so? Because that's community participation as well. Right? Community participation doesn't begin, well, my argument is that it shouldn't begin when there's a facility to be built. It should begin at, do we even have community? What do you guys think?
We agree.
I think I see a lot of hands.
Yes.
Which is good.
You direct me.
Yeah, I think the first one is also this.
Thank you. Madam.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Gazi. I think one of the things that we need to address when it comes to social cohesion and racism is the issue of spatial planning and injustice. We know about the Group Areas Act, which moved us from the center and the economic activities to the peripheries of our own land. Now, that has not been addressed. We are still stuck at the peripheries. So we still see each other as us and them, white people and us. So
I hear you that. Address the question on the floor more directly. How do we build communities? Because we want to come out, there's a culture of us having a talk show where we talk about everything and not coming specifically at something.
Yes.
So that's why I want that, where we can speak directly to issues and take this opportunity to formulate solutions for things, not to simply problem pose on what we want to speak about. So now when you want to address racism, you'll get the chance.
All right.
But there's a question on the floor that I wanted us to focus on.
Thank you. In a conversation, you teach and learn and probably unlearn. And probably at the core business of social cohesion and community building and participation is conversation. You would have watched, and I think we speak like this, Zolisa, because we are on election mode. Watch our enthusiasm and energy around creating community dialogues and elections, but watch us stop them, post them. So how do you create a government first that continues the conversation? How do you create a community member that starts the conversation? And I think that is what we must begin to have, and it's a mentality thing. People are not participating anymore, even in voting, simply because they feel that they are not heard. So it's going to be important that in our conversation we speak about creating these spaces where if we into, I know that individual and I see that individual, and you see it by action. So maybe let's start off or kind of reignite the whole purpose of conversation in our communities. Election, someone is dead somewhere or someone's house is broken into, and we won't rush to a specific corner and address the matter. Why do we only do it Why are we not letting it as a regular thing, as a cultural thing as well? Because that is at the center of heritage. Heritage is about sustaining culture. Now, we're going to own the buildings and the monuments if they form part of our culture. They'll form part of our culture if we are participating and included in the process. The process starts through conversation, and we need to bring that back.
Thank you, Nox. Thank you. And I think the key point there, Londo, that by talking like this, we are doing culture. So culture and heritage are not just things from the past that we remember, but it's how we keep ourselves alive. Good. Another point from someone else? Sure. Good. You have a great grasp on local issues.
Community leader.
I think Lendo, it's very sensitive, especially to the community that are staying on that side.
Time is limited.
Yes. But I think the solution to that particular area is to meet the community leaders working together with the South African police, maybe to put all over that was the CCTV cameras. I think that will be the solution there, but to involve the community to all activities that we want that particular specific word. Thank you.
Okay. The phone someone who hasn't spoken after that speaker. You're good? Okay, sure. Is that what? No, by a minute,
Okay. I think where Ghana they are trying to understand, but in place, one out of community, or Sasakol, or one of our state committees. The communication is clash. There was no dumping, there was a smooth communication. We asked about our community, I doubt. Maybe the clash was there.
So infrastructure to do land. And what you're reminding me of is, if you look at, for example, a community like Richmond Hill, although most affluent areas do it, they have community WhatsApp groups. And sometimes the black members of that community will have their own WhatsApp group, and then the white members will have their own, and then there's a collective one. And they have it there, especially with the white ones, hey, I'm seeing a weird car parked outside a house there. Can somebody call a security company to check what's going on? Right? But we can enforce that in our communities for the dumping issue. But what is absent in our communities is that there, especially where there is a special rating area, where they have security companies patrolling, there they call the security company to enforce this. But our communities, of course, can't afford those security companies. And also, I don't think communities have a relationship with the Metro Police, for instance, where they can then have a channel to say, Metro Police, we are seeing this thing, this is the culprit, please come now and stop them. So thanks, Budi, for raising the issue of infrastructure. Come through this.
Okay. My name is Nandi Sombolweni, Gqeberha. Do you follow Vumelana no Tandeka no Noxi Park this thing of heritage depends on us as the community. For us to remember where we come from, because there are programs by the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, because they are trying to remind us it's us that have to take control of those heritage sites, to remind ourselves that Sukapi, and this is where we want to go as this community, or similarly like this culture. This is where we want to go. Thanks.
All right, thanks. I want to bring it back to Chair, but come in, Mr. Fonte.
You know, I'm not sure how many of us remember, but there was a time when Port Elizabeth was the cleanest city in the world. Not just in South Africa, it was the cleanest city in the world. And we held on that, I think, for about 3 or 4 consecutive years, until there was a change of leadership within the city. And I think this is now, if we are represented who we are in Zongezo Space, because that's why because now what was being done in the communities, if you still remember, like in the early 2000s, in the late 1990s here in this city, there were always engagements. You would know what is going on, when is it going to take place, and by who, and all of those things. And that's what we have lost in this city. So many of these things, they somehow go back to political instability. And that is what we would need to fix, so that the communities are being engaged and communities find the comfort from their own leaders. You must know, but many of these things, they go back to the political instability and in a vacuum of leadership. You must remember, when this thing of by councillor introduced, firstly it were people that wanted to serve. But then people saw, no, Unat is not just serving, but is also earning a salary, and his lifestyle is changing now. And then it changed now to something else, and then that's where now there was young and that is correct. So if we can be able to go back to those characteristics as to, just in the 2011 or 2016 elections for 2011, I spoke to one of the councillors that was stabbed, and I was saying to that councillor, if the community doesn't want you to a point someone steps you, and then they say, we want this one as a ward council, If it's all about serving, why not just uyeke wena, uthathe uyekele lo, if it's not about into yokubana ngaba you want to look after the welfare of your family. So if we can go back to as a basics, we had here a program of, what was it, tones, when we had the problem of leaks and all of that. That program, communities knew exactly what to do because there was proper communication. So if we can just go back to all those things in this city, and I'm 100% sure there are documents that also stating what was being done to mitigate this, to address that. If we get those archives now, a Woodport exchange, there's a computer there that has got a wealth of information from presentations that are 1995 that are still there. If we can go back and access those things, I think we would also find a direction for this city.
Thank you. Chair, can you just give us a summary of that topic?
Okay. No, I think in short, colleagues, is that we've reached a point where we need to sit down and discuss the fact that where we are going, as it is the purpose of this session that we are having now, as the people of the city. Now, there are I've identified three things or areas that require a coordinated attention in order for us to promote a nation formation and social cohesion. The first one, I think, it has been the order of the day. We talk about the vision. Now, the first area is vision and its pursuit, is that pursuing a common vision, it requires a new form of civic mindedness and enhanced citizen activism. I think active citizen was also mentioned by Utandega when he spoke about the ownership of what we have in our communities. The second area is the area of the decent standard of living, whereby it is a genuine sense of belonging, which is fundamental to both nation formation and social cohesion. So, this will include the observation of the majority of the population into economic activity. The third area is building a common humanity and eliminating social barriers. I think this was also raised in the floor that we need to eliminate the social barriers, as Mr. Johnson touched on in the Group Act. Now, to conclude, I think Unoxi almost raised this before the commission started, Indaba universities and so forth. I think we've got Indaba University here, an institution that could play an important role, in promoting social cohesion in the city. As we have seen during the 2015-2016, the fees must fall, the deface of the so-called statues all around the country. So I believe that each and everyone sitting here and outside, or those who are not here, we do have a role to play in ensuring that, and also to preserve the history and the legacy of the city. Because we remember that it was Desmond Tutu who once described South Africa as a rebel nation. But it seems like we have not reached that point of being or practicing how to become a rebel nation. Now, lastly, the issues of identity and identity formation are one of the most issues that makes it difficult for South Africa to define what is social cohesion post-apartheid era. So we therefore need to shift to what is known as a social construct. So with so much diversification in the country, it is thus important to look at ways of living in the socially constructed society. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chair.
So we'll now move on to a conversation on economic planning, the blue economy and the township economy, right? And then after that, I want us to also link it to the condition of youth in the Nelson Mandela Bay, and then focusing in on the idea of, because I think if we're talking economic planning, we should then be able to talk about what are the economic challenges, for instance, youth unemployment, right? So the commissions, but I want them to be part of one conversation. So what I want is for Uche to just give us an introduction of that topic as you had planned. But I also want, and I'm putting him on the spot, Anele wrote an interesting master's on the concept is a solidarity economy, right? Basically looking at indlela, Obama mostly, baseklale, look after each other through Istokvel, right? And I think already when we talk economic planning at a high level in government, I doubt those concepts come about. So I want you to respond to that as well, Anele. So you'll be the second speaker, and then whoever was going to speak about the condition of youth unemployment in the Nelson Mandela Bay can come in. What I want the floor to start asking itself is, what is the leadership we have in our communities, in local government? Where are they failing in terms of getting youth into the economy, integrating youth into the economy? How do we feel about programs like the EPWP? I think how do we feel about that? Is it helping? Another way of integrating young people that they're trying to do is the educator assistants, general assistant programs within the education sector. If anybody was part of those programs, because that's how they're trying to frame youth jobs and youth participation in the economy in some sort of way. But Chair, over to you now.
Thank you, Lisa. Greetings once again. I think for this one, the first thing that comes to mind if we are to engage with this commission is one, understanding the economy of Nelson Mandela Bay. Looking at it with regards to one, the understanding of what the Nelson Mandela Bay is known as an automotive, city. Also, it's a city that thrives on the tourism industry. And also, it's a city that is also, when we talk of automotive, we can even break it down to the industrialization of, the side of things and focusing and zooming in on manufacturing. And then also being a key city with regards to Indaba and logistics. So I would like us then to zoom into those as to how do we, try and collaborate and integrate all these key economic drivers of this particular, city for them to be able to position us in a way that this city can thrive economically and we can create more jobs and address the issues of unemployment.
Yeah. Well, Zolisa, when I started thinking about my work around solidarity economy, I had this intuition about the structural arrangement of the economy, which is very oppressive to the black person in South Africa. So I wanted to think about a particular way of thinking about economy that is not linked to the formal arrangement of economy. So in other words, I wanted to look into what are the makings that what people are doing in the communities to make this term that I thought about, to make life, right? So abantu, there is no work, right? there's no work. And I am making again another prediction that in the future there will be no economy to base this idea of work. So in the future now, there will be no work, there will be no economy. In other words, there will be no work because of the neoliberal structural arrangement of the economy. So we needed.
What do you mean by that?
So, yeah.
Break it down.
Yeah. So what I mean is that we have an economic system, right? Where the economic system itself has particular ideas, right? Particular ideas that in order for a particular person to benefit to this economy, these are the packages that you must have. You have to have a particular type of skill set, right? Now, historically, Zolisa, if you map out the history of work in South Africa, abantu abamnyama were used as cheap labor, right? Abantu, they were exported from their household to go and work in the mines, right? So there was this extraction of labor. So there's a Marxist term, this thing of taking people from their household and then they must go and work. Now, in the next, if we are not able to think about alternative ways of making life, so I say, community zethu zicinge ukuba yintoni thina esinayo within our community.
Let me come in again. The thing I wanted you to answer is, you're saying that there won't be work. What's this thing that's coming that's going to steal work? Because interestingly, there's a blue economy that's coming that we're not taking advantage of. In fact, it exists, but we're not taking advantage of. So in some way or the other, there is work.
No, there's no work.
There is work. And in fact, one of the points is an IoT. Where there was the issue of cheap labor, and people were taken, black people were used as cheap labor. You know what has happened now? If we go back to that conversation about our foreign brothers and sisters, and that's what has happened. Our brothers and sisters from abroad, they are the ones now who have taken over, and they are actually now doing that work that used to be done by our own. Because we have seen now, and we have seen ourselves as superior, as if we are unable, or we can't do certain types of trades. Because if we are talking about the oceans economy, the maritime activities that are taking place, majority of those, you know what a ship requires? A ship requires a plumber. A ship requires a plumber. A ship requires an electrician. A ship requires an engineer. All these things that we have looked down upon because I service where we used to go for woodworks and all those things, and technical schools in the townships, they are dying and all of those things. So umsebenzi will always be there, because as much as even in that we are trying to go for automation of ships as well. That will not happen now because amanzi ayazilawula. You can't be sitting somewhere trying to control a boat, a big vessel with a gross tonnage of over 900.
Check.
So that will not happen.
Okay, let me pause you there quickly. I want to ask a direct question to you, but while you analyze response. I like the fact that you speak about that there is work, but I'd also like to ask, realistically speaking, what are the chances of a Simpiwe from Mission Vale tapping into that plumbing opportunity within the blue economy? How do these young people who need that opportunity get into that sector. Because interestingly enough, I sort of work in close proximity with the renewable energy sector, right? So I find online that, okay, there is a short training program of about 7 months. You do it, and then you become a technician to fix a wind turbine if there's an issue with it. I speak to somebody who works for a wind farm. I'm like, hey, release funds so that we can recruit young people to go do this course. It's also tight. The problem is you cannot find even someone with a grade 11 maths and science mark that's good enough to give this opportunity. The budget has been sitting there for years. So how do you overcome those challenges as well, Chair? Do you still believe there's no work coming? And what is it, that thing that makes you believe seven Zabuzi? So, and then the floor, please, come in whenever you want to. So, by your hands.
So Lisa, there are funny Sundays at this thing.
Yes.
All I'm trying to do is for us to think about the economy in a very different way. And we see now, Indaba, there are indicators about the problem that we are finding ourselves. Even more, even if I can have the master's degree in any, in whatever qualification, it's difficult to have an access to the labor market. So this labor market that we have in South Africa is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
It produced this unemployment.
How?
No, job so
okay, thanks for that. Yes. So let me start with you.
I'm trying to listen to Anita. And I'm getting lost in between, lost in translation. If we talk about all that has been talked about now, my view in terms of job creations, about the topic that has been discussed, it starts at the bottom and it starts with education. Education is most probably the ground rule of any and all change that we want to implement, first and foremost. The markets that we have, the jewels that we have, the richness that we have in this country can only be tapped in if we educate, and educate based on entrepreneurship. Because if our people start believing that they can do, and they can do their own business, it will then be an inspiration to go and get that information, to start their own businesses, to become self-employed, hence creating employment, which will alleviate the fact that there will be no jobs.
Thank you, Chair.
Hi, Chair. Entertain a new voice quickly. Can I entertain a new voice quickly? It's not like you wanted to come in?
Okay, I thank you so much. My name is Andy Swamantikane. I am the new provincial coordinator for Black Management Forum, Eastern Cape. And I say this for a reason I will tell you guys later. Umama's response really touched me because it's something that I actually wanted to talk about. And my thing is, I feel like we focus a lot on employability. We focus a lot on the job market as opposed to focusing on creating or starting something, like Mama said, entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship means, like, in the sense of the example that Unati made. Unati mentioned something about e-plumber and how there are vacancies of plumbing in the Blue Ocean department. I remember there was Utata Matiso. Utata Matiso was making an example, job creation. It about how a skilled plumber usuke college will go around looking for a job as opposed to starting something ngokwakhe. You find that in so many houses, akho umuntu ongafuni plumber, akho umuntu ongafuni electrician, akho umuntu ongafuni ukwazi ukwenza izinto ngesandla. Why go out there and go look for a job? Whereas imisebenzi ayikho, why not start something? And it also goes back to information. Yes, abantu are not well equipped, they are not well informed. Abanye abantu feel like starting a business is something difficult, and I feel like abantu who've got skill are at a better advantage of starting a business, but they lack information because platforms such as these, Manditi Azizi, okanye mhlambi, they don't get enough information about the platforms ezinje so that they can go in and then get that information to start their own businesses.
Do you support this idea that the solution is entrepreneurship, specifically individual entrepreneurs? You know, do you feel like it's going to work? Do you feel like we are overstating the role of entrepreneurship in social development in the country? But you'll respond to that later.
Thank you. Chair, the problem with speaking after people, you must resist the edge of wanting to reply to what they say. No, I'm honestly saying the face of unemployment now is not unskilled. It's not people that are dropped out. I'm a graduate and I'm unemployed. I have a qualification that is classified as one of the best qualifications in the country. I hold a BCom accounting, and I'm still unemployed. You know, so I really want us to have this conversation. I agree, no Chair, and I agree, no Anel, that jobs are available and jobs are not available. And this is why I say this. No, let me tell you why I say this. The creation of jobs, when you look at it, it's minimum paying jobs. They are unable to sustain the conditions of living. And that is why we are exporting jobs from other foreign African countries, because they are cheap. It's cheap labor that South Africans cannot bear with. It can't be that you're a mother of 3 kids and you come and you're still a domestic worker and you must bring back 1.2. It does not make sense, because apartheid's part, and this is one of Zolila's favorite topics, that apartheid was very deliberate in its partial housing. Black people are far from suburbs. Black people are far from their places of work. To travel from Pier in New Brighton to go to Newton Park, you must catch 2 taxis. You are spending about 40 rand to go to work. When you calculate the amount of money you are making 1.5. You are spending what? 1,000 rand, 800 on transport. And it's not every day that you are going to carry a lunchbox. Some days now we are KFC, which is streetwise too. But you still have a family that looks up to you. And let's be honest, South Africa is one of the countries in the world that is famous for exporting teaching degrees. If you have a teaching degree, you can go to Asia for a job, you know. And it's not like when you get to Asia, it's a job that will pay you like a CEO in South Africa. It's a minimum paying job to be a teacher in Asia, but it's better because it has other benefits. So it's something that we should look at. Entrepreneurship, not easy.
Thank you, Tandek. I leave it there. Chair? Yes. Where's the hand? Yes. Thank you.
I'm sorry to infiltrate this discussion, ladies and gentlemen.
You are very welcome, sir.
My name is Sonwabo Gila. I run an audiovisual productions company that's run by a relatively young and old person who left the world of work deliberately to start his own business. It's risky and it's a risk. Inherently risky. I am challenging you. I'm going to send you my documents, company documents, so that you do our tax. You will not have to come and pick them up from Mount Croy. We'll email photocopy documents to you. If you would do books for our company, I will introduce you to other small businesses that need their books done. There is work out there for people who want to be entrepreneurs. I'm disappointed to hear discussions in a room full of young people who are looking for work instead of setting themselves up to be employers. Please guys, let's change the mentality. There's space for us to be entrepreneurs.
Okay, I want us to focus on this point. And this is what it's coming to you in the sense, Chair. You're ready. We'll come to you as well. But I think it's a burning issue, this one around entrepreneurship. I want us to think though, because again, I go back to, what did I name him? Simpiwe from Ewom. Simpiwe doesn't have a car, for example, you know, and he's unemployed, and maybe the mother is a domestic worker, so she gets the 1.2 epeleki and epeleki, right? You need some sort of resource to run your business. And the thinking I have is that, yes, entrepreneurship can help, right? But can people who are in a poor community use this typical model of entrepreneurship where you're starting a business, someone is going to pay you, you do this service for them, when you live in a community where the budgets are limited? The majority of the people that you have access to give a service to don't have money, right? Mr. Zonda, maybe you can tell us, from some of the young people that you fund, do they provide services to their immediate communities, or is there a trend that to be a successful entrepreneur in you sort of have to move out and access markets from outside? We'll come to you. Come here, Richard.
I'm going to make a very practical example of what you're stating. I feel like you are basing this on, I think with Gqeberha, before Gqeberha, I'm going to explain why I'm saying that. This thing of entrepreneurship. And let's say in the stove, right? Oh, sorry, I'm so sorry. Okay, so I'm making it a practical example, right? Just to base on what Uzolisa is saying. So I just want to make this example just to show the practicality of e-entrepreneurship based on the scenario he gave us. For example, let's say my stove is not working at home, right? I know there's Uput Unati who does plumbing, who is good in plumbing. That's a step one of entrepreneurship. The fact that I thought of Uput Unati, he's going to come to my house providing services for his well-being. Yes, of course, he doesn't have a company yet, right? But he's got the skill to provide that service for me. Does that not make him an entrepreneur? Right? Okay, let's say Onati continues with all of the service that he gives me. Then it comes to information then. So when platforms like these will give Onati some sort of understanding that, hey man guys, I can actually expand on this, right? I can actually start a company, right? So that's where the information goes. So I think the main thing when it comes to entrepreneurship is, yes, you can do it practically like the way that I explained it, but for you to expand, you need to get information. Like information as how to start a business should come to places like the townships, whereby people are providing those skills. I hope I've answered your question.
But I think that information is coming. We have multiple institutions at a provincial and local government level that do that. You know, I think, so the challenge with me, you're saying I'm seeing it from up there, is that I feel like every time we talk about entrepreneurship, we're imagining that anybody can just jump as a young person and start a business.
Thank you.
You know? And the entrepreneurs will tell you. In fact, I tried being one myself. My business has currently been closed for about 8 months because it's challenging. But I've got employment. You know, so I can strategize later on and all of that. But can we expect people in abject poverty? Because the problem with us is that it's not an individual problem. Your community is, it's called sort of a multi-deprivation analysis. Even the information, you can't distill it because you can't understand it. Ne? You don't have access to the internet, for example. And so the multiple people in your community as well, in as much as they have the need, it can be plugged. If there's cleaning needed, there are young men and women who can pick that stuff up. But they can't start a PTY limited because no one's available to pay for that service in that community. That's the thing I want to hone in on, is that can we vision for this person who has nothing at all and to create some kind of system, like what my brother is doing. I said, look, I have a business, and not only do I want you to come into my business, but I want to make it so convenient for you in the sense that I may bring these documents so you can work from wherever you are to do it.
Sure. Moment of help.
Thank you.
Mr. Zonda, I want new voices.
I have a question for you.
Zolisa, thank you very much for that question. And my short answer to you is yes. An economy, in my understanding, and from what Tower once coined nicely, it's just a coming together of people to share, to exchange ideas, products, and services. It's nothing else. And that is why we suffered so much under COVID. Right? Number one. Number two, these products and services that young people need, or anyone in the community needs, exist within the actual community. At times, when young people come to us as the NYTA, we have to distill, and ask them, do you think that that person can actually afford that, or as and when, or at the level that you have priced it or costed it? So it becomes small technicalities, costing, pricing, the small things, registering your business if needs be. If you need to remain a survivalist, remain a survivalist, remain informal. And I think even in the classification of entrepreneurs, we need to be clear. Exactly what are we meaning? Sometimes we think entrepreneur is small to medium business, ties and all of that, and someone who's doing well. Just the other day I was at ETV colleges, they had their first inter-college entrepreneurship competition. And I was amazed by the fact that they were far more prepared than some universities that I've seen, that I've adjudicated, number one. Number two, they were investment ready far more than some of the innovative ideas and software and so on that university students are churning out. These guys are electricians. Before the for the market, I can actually do tubing. I'm out in our town. There's a young lady, she's a nail technician. She's making a lot of money. And I said to her, even if you do win or not this competition, the market for you exists because you're providing services on wheels that ladies need. They want all the time. I know this for sure. So I'm just saying that it exists. I think we just need to provide the right advice, the right mentorship and the right advisory services to young people to say, listen, going into this type of a business, what are you trying to achieve first of all? Right? You're a survivalist, which is fine. Remain informal, even though our treasury as well as our finance departments will say, we want you to become formalized so that we can extend relief programs to you and so on. But if you're a survivalist, remain there. And if you operate from the back door or from the garage of your home, remain there. And we always tell them this, don't try and move to cities and so on because you're going to incur costs, overheads and so on, and your business will go under, and then you say entrepreneurship is a difficult thing. But I truly believe that if young people really, and a lot of them are doing it, and I think also, Zolisa, what you have done in introducing this topic, you've chopped down my own commission because entrepreneurship is one of my topics, right? Which is fine, but we'll expand on it. But I'm saying, Kuti, the coming together of people to share ideas and exchange on products and services is an economy in and of itself. So there'll always be an economy. Remember what Mr. Mtimba said here, that once you're able to solve your problems and your solutions in your household, somehow you're able to solve the problems or the solutions of someone else's household. For instance, my own. I've got a child, I've got a wife. Now I need to understand that Lumnanda needs to be taken care of. I need to get products and services from somewhere to actually assist me with this situation because it's a problem. Now what I'm doing, I'm extending the economy outside my household as well. So I'm just saying that the way we think about the economy needs to be, an economy in and of itself is the movement and exchange of ideas and products of people. Economy is the people, that's it.
It's interesting, I have responses, but what's
Thank you. We have not yet, as a country, really debriefed post-1994. Because when you're speaking about SMP, I'm saying it's a new Brighton. Mission Bay. It's not in some extent, but SMP is still not here. Why? We must ask ourselves why. Because when you go to encourage or interact with a Simpiwe in a mission veil around entrepreneurship, you are first dealing with a social and mental issue. That person socially does not relate to what is presented here. So a proactive NYDA does go to the communities. They do. But how NYDA community interacting with Simpiwe, even in Esikosa, does Simpiwe understand what blue economy is? Does Simpiwe relate with ocean economy?
Thank you.
And that is the decoding that must happen.
I appreciate that. You'll come back again. Check.
All right. It's possible that a Simpiwe was a warmer that they can participate. But you must remember, somehow is where they are being managed. One, the first thing first is you are being told now we forget about an employee, or we forget about the word labor when we go to ocean's economy. Once we go to the ocean, we're talking about a seafarer. And when you look at the word seafarer, and then it becomes this something big. So the first things first is just unpacking all these terms. We citizens and bring the awareness. Two, we need a government that is willing, and a government that can be bold. So the opportunities that are available there, currently they can't be accessed by South Africans because we've got izinto that we call it a cabotage. A cabotage is sort of a labor way of saying percentage of the labor that is within those ships that are here, must be South Africans and what, and of which we don't have that, and all these other countries around the world, they've got that. In South Africa, we don't. All these vessels that you see is lab, we've got here about 7 vessels as well up at 24/7. There is nothing that compels them to employ South Africans, because our government have just let it to be a free for all for them. So for now,
wait, Chair, you're telling me this hasn't been discussed in Operation Pakisa? Because for instance, the example I have in the Renewable Energy Center, it's the same sort of thing where the ownership of a wind farm, right, is mostly by international companies, right? But government has succeeded in some way in saying, look, firstly, a percentage of this wind farm must be owned by the community through a trust. And that trust's mandate must be to then develop this community in different shapes and forms. Sometimes it's 26%, sometimes it's 25%. But that's ensuring that this new economy that comes in must benefit the community. That's not happened within the blue economy.
It has not happened. It is only a willing, the willingness of the ship owners. Like for instance, we've got a company that is called Vuka Marine has decided they don't even do any work here. All their ships are registered here in Port Elizabeth, in Gqeberha. All of their ships. They transport the iron ore around the world. Even when they buy a ship in Japan, they will buy that and bring it here and register it here, because there has been a disintegration between the spheres of the government. Many of these ship owner or cargo owner companies, they find a problem when they register their vessels under a South African flag. And what we are fighting for right now, so now that topic is on the table right now. The cabotage, the ship registry in South Africa. Remember, we sold a submarine, of which we had, and of which we had an opportunity to employ land to and all of those things. So it's only right now that conversation is back on the table as to say, what are we doing in terms of a ship registry? Because the ship registry, immediately a vessel is with a South African flag. Automatically, that is South African land. That is South African land. So all these vessels that you see, once it's got the US, Argentina, and what, there is nothing the South African government can say to the owners of that ship, because it does not have the flag of this country. But those opportunities right now, because remember, your TNPAs and your SAMSAs that give these people licenses, they have somehow been letting these people to get away with murder. But right now, things now will be able to change. Then you will see very soon there will be robust engagements in the communities about opportunities that are out there in the blue economy. All this will start with
how can communities participate in getting the right policies there, like this one that I'm quoting from the renewable energy sector? Or is there a role player like a BMF that's spearheading sort of the inclusion of communities in that sector, or policies that favor a beneficiation for the community? Because I mean, you have groups like Black Fisheries Association that were hardly included in it.
Yes, so there are a lot of lobby groups, like we are part of those that are currently trying to influence the policies, but then you would then understand about whatever that happens in the ocean. Once you go to the ocean, you are talking about an international space. So things changes. So the lobbying that needs to happen, you need to go to Geneva. That's where you need to go and lobby. You go to Geneva, and then a decision from Geneva, London will be taken, and then you will be able now to change this into here. That's why even your SAPS standards, South African standards of quality management, assurance, and what, they don't even work there. It's all international Lloyd standards and all those things from abroad.
All right, I'll take a question here, and then Mr. Mandela, you come in.
Thank you, Jim. I think we are diverting from the core as to how do we get the communities, or how do we implement, how do we reach the Simpiwis, if I can get back to that point. As the other speaker said, when we talk about certain things, we talk in a manner that everybody that we deal with should understand. And if we want to reach the Simpiwis and assist the Simpiwis, the change has to come in the way we communicate that information through. Because the information will have the same outcome irrespective of the terms and the terminologies that we use. Like for instance, we are talking about entrepreneurship as if it is something that only a certain classification or certain group of people can enter. Entrepreneurship is the boy at school that is selling sweets to his friend. He's an entrepreneur because he's making business. So if we can change the mentality of how we look at creating your own business instead of the lingo in which communicate, then our Simpiwis will know that if I go to my neighbor and I go and I do that service for my neighbor and I get paid for that, I am a businessman. I am starting to own my own business. And if that information in that format, that layman's term, gets communicated in a forum like this, in a community of Simpiwe standard, or where Simpiwe is, that community will understand, fight for that, and grow that in the terms that they understand. So it's all about the way that we communicate the message through for all of our people to understand that yes, everything is possible. It's just in the way that it gets communicated through.
All right, thank you. Colleagues on the panel there, and I think we have to wrap up. So I want to get a synthesis from your side. Closing remarks, 2 minutes each. And then on the floor as well, especially if you haven't spoken, come through. What are your thoughts from all the discussions that have been coming up? You know, I specifically love people who come up with practical solutions or ideas. So I'll start that side and then come this side and then give to Molon to close.
All right. I think the common thing that has been coming out tonight, here today, is around the awareness and the communication, the engagement. And I think that is the only way we will be able now to change the situation. I think access to information and making sure that our communities understand exactly, you know, what is currently happening. So if we are to talk about the economic planning, the blue, economy and the township economy, we just need to have those sessions within our communities and engage as to what does this really mean and how do we then change this and make sure that it makes a meaningful, impact in our communities. For instance, like as a passing, there was a comment that was made where we established an office in Motherwell When we established the office in Motherwell, the only thing that our politicians could only do to us, or for us, was always to come and knock and say, we need assistance, we need assistance. Nothing else. That's all they could see. They were like, we are happy that someone sees us, and then we are able now to go and knock all the time. And those are the things that we need now to change, within our communities, so that our businesses do not die in those communities, but our businesses thrive and we create jobs. But the key that I think we are all taking from today is awareness, engagement, and then we strategize, we implement.
I also agree fully with what Nati says, just mentioned. And now I think mine is access to information. How do we make sure that information is also given to people in the townships? I am a huge advocate of township economy, and most of the events and dialogues that I'm always a part of, it's always in the township, because I believe that it's in those platforms, at least in those areas, that not much of these structures is in Jena. So yes, access to information is important, but also e-programs so that they can reach with townships. A session in Jena, which is based in Motherwell, a sports center, calling all entrepreneurs, calling graduates, whatever the case may be, but just the information to be out there in the townships. Thank you.
Okay, mine is just to say to Mr. Olwa, I just hope that this is not one of those those ICT summit in East London organized by our brothers. We need a plan moving forward. I'm actually glad that there are notes that people are taking in the questionnaires and so forth. May they be the start of, more engagement that will lead to implementation and so forth. Because we can't sit here and discuss, but there won't be any plan going forward. As Mr. Soldi said, that Gqeberha has a great potential economy in terms of economy. So whatever that is being discussed here, maybe for the next session that's going to come, we need to say from the previous discussions, this is where we ended up. So can you please take it further? Because I was listening to the panelists here in the morning, they have a vision for the city, but what we want is the implementation of the city. Thank you.
Just before we see anything, I just want to ask a question. This one is for you to answer it your own. Yes. You put an offer on the table. Yes. Was it taken?
She took my email address. Here's a second line for her.
Okay, that's good. That's good. All right. Thank you.
It's good to see linkages being created. Yes. Yeah, so again, coming together of people really speaks to what an economy really is. I think for me, just hats off to the Black Hat team for this session. I think even the panelists once mentioned Uti, dialogues have seen a sharp decline in recent years, even made worse by the lockdowns that we're coming out of. And in fact, we are thinking that, and I think it's wrong, we're thinking that dissemination of information via our technical, via digitization is the best form of getting it done, but there's value in sessions like this that we've seen actually far more valuable, or at least reap far more results and meaningful results than actual just putting something on social media, etc. So for me, I think to intensify these, to get them out there, for instance, even in the NYDA, in the past 3 to 4 years, we found the budget for social dialogues being completely taken off the table. So there's a movement away from meaningful conversations, and I think at times we use the pandemic also as a crutch to say, in fact, we should not do it anymore. I mean, there are even policies now that say if a meeting can't be, your first priority should be to have a virtual meeting and then look into it. So we've got an issue that we also need to get to really address. But so mine is to really take my hat off to them. Meaningful discussions to echo many of the sentiments here. I won't repeat them, and I'm looking forward to more collaborations. I'm hoping, Mr. Mas, that contacts will be shared. I think there's far more that we can engage on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we had very interesting conversations, Commission. What I want to say that I'm speaking as a Foot of Democracy member, what are we going to do as part of this commission? We are going to consolidate a particular type of a report. That report that we made because of this meeting, we will then send to everyone. We'll use that report as a form of engagement to the leadership of the city to say, okay, we had a particular meeting. This is what we have discussed. These are the key priorities from the youth, from the organization. How far are you in implementing these things? So we are going to use this engagement. I go further than say ICT, we are going to use it, and we are committing ourselves as democracy to go back and find out how far are we making progress. To add on, I think it's true, we have to think about means, Zolisa, of empowering young people, of jobs, work, economy, and all of these things. And then you know the free submit and the Bible. We have to do political education to young people, to begin to think about what type of society they envisage, what do they want about, what is that society. We political parties because it's on Zaga.
This is the analogy I wanted.
So that's why I appreciate colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, before we move, I feel like I have to address this so that we don't offend people. I wouldn't want us to be making fun of other platforms because this is going online, and also we're not trying to make a fight. What we're trying to do is to build a city, and anyone who's in the platform must give respect to anyone who's doing something great. So I want to address that. We are core builders and drivers in the city, and we respect people who are doing such great work. Thank you.
Thanks, Ola. May they forgive us at the ICT Summit.
Okay.
Hands from
another question, Prof, but ndifuna ukwazi phaa kuni ngaphambili nifumaneka njani maybe to invite you kwi-communities zethu because of the information nisinika yona. To me, I'm happy with it, but I will pass also to the community but nifumaneka njani, maybe I can invite you kwi-wide so that you can spread the wealth nakwabanye abantu. Thank you.
Thank you, Program Director. I just wanted to make my last statement. Yes, it's so true that we need to work together, but for the government coming in the 1st of November, I think the first thing they need to look at is the policy that say the public participation. Also, the Chief Whip need to look into the ward council that does not have the public meetings for information to the people, where the ward committees are not even being seen. Because if we want to start working with our communities, we really need to implement that step ladder that we created from the ward from the street committee to the area committee to the ward committee to the ward council and to council. I think if we follow the protocol that it is supposed to be the same, the government who's going to rule in after the 1st of November has a task to make sure that that participation is being implemented correctly, and not only when you ask for budgets and then you keep a budget meeting so small because you know you do not want challenges in terms of the budget. But in any aspect, in any changes of people's life, in any policies, public participation must come right down to the people through the structure that is there. Thank you very much.
I think this is a good initiative, Mr. Sund and your team. But you and I know that you have done this, more than hundreds of these. I've been part of it, you have been part of it. It concerns young when I look around. You guys up front are talking about community engagement. I look around here as a community member or an Sonti, Mendi, Kamlam, John Odedora. You're up and young coming potential business or entrepreneur ayikho. Abo bantu balapha bazawuhamba. Ayikho laa nto kuthiwa sispenda lokhala imali yethu. Abo bantu balapha bazawuhamba. Akakho umuntu wasembizweni sheya kulathi olapha. And you can't tell me there is no one who can come and participate apha mkhulu. Uzawuhamba Sunday Motherwell. Some of you guys, Summerstrand, abanye Humud. Yintoni enishiyayo eNew Brighton as a legacy kind of investment? Tim Kaluvuyo Bangazi MBDA. Yintoni enishiyayo apha elokishini ethi we were here and we left and nansi ngesishiyayo. Guys, we must stop doing things the same way we used to do them. You go to Motherwell, you do a workshop in Motherwell, and you go back to Summerstrand. The politicians, they've got a problem because as it humps as connection. Because when we come to a council meeting, economy is down. They don't know what is happening in gas. They don't know Giachiso. They don't know because they don't stay there. They just come there, yep, and go to Summerstrand. So, my good people, I think we need to change the way of doing things. Let us make sure there are people about so that those people are going to speak on your behalf. Because those of us are your bride to home, so I bet $1 million. So you need people about to make on doing Mendi at center. And you know, I was part of that. This is what was happening in Mendi. I also invite you to come on board and participate. But let's be honest. Whom are you going to say we were at Mendi at Center, a Blower, a New Bright, and here is our testimony. Khumbula sonke sithetha esikwaziyo sinqine esikubonileyo.
Thanks, Chairman. I am blessed with this submission. With my manager, Dr. Mr. Sodi, will take out Kala, take an industrial seat, which is the automotive data set. Currently, we have stated in the family. How about the paper the draft letter that potential economic areas? They want to cloud clean up when you go to the dispatch, Motherwell, and also Zaken. There's a potential of farming. It can be vegetables, it can be poultry, it can be fish farming. Also, currently case debating the technology. There's a potential also there. Sithethe kakhulu interpretation. Kweli phepha lami ithetha ngento zitshisa nyama fish and chips. That iqhamuke kakhulu. Kukho le nto nge-events. And we also didn't debate about fashion. We are making events in terms of fashion. There is a vintage, there is a urban fashion, there is a newcomer fashion. With township economics as well, ndiyacela ukuyijonga kakhulu loo nto leyo. Here in Mandela Metro, we've got about 5 or 6 townships. We've got Woma, KwaZakhele, Motherwell, Gqeberha. Silapha ngoku. And New Brighton. There's a potential of economic growth up in Mendi. You can mix your fashion with chisanyama and also do events on your weekends. If you go to Njoli, KwaZakhele Square, Kola Bus, you will see there, there is a chisanyama there. Must be able to engage our heart so that we grow our economy. In Motherwell, as we speak, we go there every weekend, even during the week. There is a potential there of fashion again, food and events. And also in Gqeberha, that's what my suggestion was.
Thanks, Clarence. I'll now give over to Olwam just to close for us.
Okay, it's kind of a sister to who does that, but also because people have been raising weaknesses that I saw when I was taking some of the hints from that. We see a glaring weakness that when we called an engagement in this facility, that the community around didn't read it as us inviting the community in the space. One of the weaknesses is the mechanism that we use to advertise. One of the weaknesses is that once you invite a political leader, the message might not get to the member. And another mechanism is that, of course, another issue is that when it's still good that when we want to meet, we can find a space and meet. Even if I'm from Evugu, this is my uncle who comes from Etengibo right now, you know, Amanda, Ngola, who's Amanda, you know, Bela, some of the Oluzuko, they stay here, and all those people. So it's not that we don't want the community to come, but also the space is such that we can have an intellectual discussion, and we can't treat this space as if it's a street-based space. That is my honest view, as much as we agree to the weaknesses of not having to have reached the community. I'm not one that believes that since the university, Nelson Mandela University is in Missionville, that it's only Missionville people who need to be employed there, or it's only Missionville children that needs to be there. It's an international facility that anyone across the ends of the world can come and use, and we viewed Mendi also as part of that we can find ourselves and our peers, wherever they come from in Nelson Mandela Bay, to be able to come and have a conversation without also feeling that we are illegitimate children in the space. We acknowledge we need to get a mechanism that reaches the community. In that regard, we are speaking to some of the panelists to take us into their own communities. Clamby, we can do the same thing with you, sir, and help us to help us to have a conversation that will be useful in that regard. We're not government, we don't have money to leave behind. We might not be able to give everyone the business support, but we will try the best that we can to avail some information in these people that are sitting there to be able to assist us. So thank you very much, Sisetu.
Thank you so much, all. Ngesixhosa kuthiwa into engapheliyo iyahlola. So firstly, we would like to extend a gratitude to everyone who has made it here today and has engaged with us on this platform. And you know, one of the underlying narratives, sorry? Oh, on the stage, okay. And one of the underlying narratives that Fruits of Democracy has shown or has, tried to embrace is the fact that there's nothing for us without us. If we do not take an active part in making things happen for ourselves, then chances are things will not happen. If there aren't platforms for us to speak or to engage with other people, then we create those platforms for us to speak and engage with people, or if we're not given those opportunities. And the narratives or the beauty that having all these people come here, all these multidisciplinaries who have come here today to share their insights have basically spoken the same thing, which is the beauty of having a non-partisan platform to say, we're not trying to direct the conversation in any particular way. We want everyone to share their views. And the fact of the matter is that everyone wants an element of accountability from our leadership, whoever our leadership may be, and that the greatest win is if we all win. Because when we see 10% of our community winning while the other 90% is suffering, that's not a win. So a great win is for us to all win. When I looked at the panel here, first I'd like to thank Mr. Sondi from the maritime industry, or Andiswa, who is an entrepreneur and also sits on the Black Management Forum Young Professionals Board, Mr. Zanokolo, who's a researcher, Mr. Sia Zondani, who is the regional manager for the NYTA, no Anele Loto, who is an entrepreneur and also an academic, that we're sitting on a platform with dynamic people who amongst ourselves could make great things happen and not necessarily rely on these big corporates or whoever to make it happen. We are making it happen right here, right now. So sometimes the things that we require are right here within us, and it's up to us to just make them happen. Without further ado, thank you so much to everyone who has come here today. Thank you to all our stakeholders, our sponsors, for allowing us to have this, and thank you to the Fruits of Democracy team who has been committed to the cause for the past 6 years and still going strong. My name is Sese Gomo Sebokwe, and thank you.